I hate The Mandalorian. It's actually good, which pisses me off. The dumb fella Star Wars was supposed to be my greatest cultural work, which now will forever be Cats. This is Doom Tonight. Welcome to hell.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
I mean, pop culture is currency in the United States. Remember the summer of 2017? No matter who it was, they could tell you the entire history of the House of Targaryen. But ask the average American about Rwanda, and all they can tell you is Don Cheadle ran a shitty hotel there. And I could probably get that sequel made. It's not that hard. You see, Hollywood loves pumping out unoriginal shit. We're even making Schindler's List 2. Disney's co-producing along with the Chinese government. I mean, what do you want? They thank concentration camp officials in the credits to Milan after filming next to concentration camps the same way Friends used to film next to a Denny's in Burbank. Look, I don't want original ideas in the marketplace. That might inspire somebody. I mean, look at all this shit that's getting made. We've even found a way to commoditize nostalgia. They'd even remake Scooby-Doo, except for Shaggy's in rehab and nobody's seen Scooby since last year's Guangxi, Lychee, and Dog Meat Festival. It's a real thing. Look it up. We just keep making needless sequels to once beloved franchises until you can't remember the reason you liked those franchises in the first place. And eventually these properties lose all relative value and currency until their fan bases are tossed aside like suicide jumpers at a Foxconn factory. Through Disney's mismanagement and corporate greed, the original American movie franchise, Star Wars, was well on the way to becoming a diminished franchise lessened in the place of other, more relevant franchises. The Backstreet Boys to the Lord of the Rings NSYNC, the Nicki Minaj to Avengers Cardi B, the Al-Qaeda to Harry Potter's ISIS. By the time Rise of Skywalker rolled around, profit between the first and last movies dropped 51%, and it had one of the worst 50-day declines in box office movie history. And a trend that started with Last Jedi, which suffered the biggest week-to-week drop in movie history. Some blame J.J. Abrams for his unoriginality, others Rian Johnson for a take so far out of the Star Wars universe, 20% of Luke's scenes involved green titty milk, and still others pointed the finger to head of Lucasfilm Kathleen Kennedy for a lack of cohesive story that seemed to have no purpose in the first place. Lucasfilm has largely determined the overarching plot from movie to movie, former employees say, a clash that has created confusion, so much so that Lucasfilm executives had little idea how they would wrap up the trilogy in the film that followed. I mean, George Lucas himself, after seeing the first movie, told CEO Bob Iger, "There's nothing new." Some say Force Awakens was just a rehashed copy of A New Hope, and others say J.J. Abrams' next project is adapting Melania Trump's new book, Becoming Melania.
From a young age, my parents impressed on me the values that you work hard for what you want in life.
That your word is your bond.
That your word is your bond.
That you do what you say you're going to do.
And you do what you say and keep your promise. That you treat people with respect.
With dignity and respect.
I mean, that's totally unoriginal. Kind of like concentration camps in the 21st century. Also a hack move. I mean, the Germans already did them and also had the support of major companies. Like, remember how IBM and Hugo Boss worked with the Nazis back in the day? And you're like, that would never happen now. Who would work with the Nazis? I mean, how would that ever happen? And then there's concentration camps in China, and Disney not only films in those regions, but thanks the government and bends over backwards for the very dictator who runs those concentration camps, you know, like an evil empire. Again, the Chinese government has over 1 million Muslims in concentration camps right now and today. I mean, how did companies like IBM work with the Nazis and get away with it? We'll never know. Just like we'll never know who committed that murder at Nicole Brown Simpson's house on the night of June 12, 1994.
We finished filming. OJ said to me that he had a surprise for me, and I genuinely was surprised.
Just did you do it?
No, I didn't.
I think it was his idea of a joke.
Nope.
And this is it.
Didn't not do it.
Does anybody get the irony of a company owning Star Wars that sides with an evil authoritarian government that has 1 million people in camps? I'm so good at my job.
Disney is facing backlash for its live-action remake of Mulan. In the credits of the film, Disney thanks controversial government agencies in China's Xinjiang province. That's where reportedly more than 1 million Muslims are being held in concentration camps.
We've seen birth rates in Xinjiang drop roughly 24% in 2019 alone, which makes it past the legally recognized definition for genocide. And we can conclusively say that this is a horrific atrocity that's happening, and Disney, unfortunately, decided to play a part. And over the last 22 years, Disney has become one of the most reliable partners for the Chinese Communist Party. The scenes that seem like they were from Xinjiang are not scenes that had to be unique to Xinjiang. There are other parts of China, other parts of the world that they could have easily filmed those scenes. So it remains baffling.
Maybe that's why George Lucas now calls Disney white slavers. I mean, I guess nobody really cares anymore. Hugo Boss is still in business. Maybe that's who makes Bob Iger's suits. I mean, Star Wars seemed ready to succumb to the same forces that have ruined so much in this world. Corporate control, greed, media conglomeration leading to unoriginality, even overt acceptance of slave labor. Ticket sales were flat, both toy sales and park attendance slumping. Something had gone awry. With even the Wall Street Journal questioning aloud where the Skywalker saga and Star Wars would go after Disney and Lucasfilm's mismanagement. All seemed dark until A New Hope in the form of The Mandalorian, a story that gets two things right at the heart of Star Wars: family and politics. And if we add a third, a lack of green milk titty. The Mandalorian gets it because the people who made it get it. Star Wars is about family, the loss of family, and overcoming that with the family you got left. You want to eat Thanksgiving with these people because the Mandalorian treats them that way, even if Grogu is just straight up eating other people's kids. And that's what this was to millions of people, something that the sequels missed: family. It's the heart and soul of the whole thing. Disney didn't treat these people like family. They treat them like narrative roadblocks on the way to sell more toys and new characters, not the heart and soul of a multi-billion-dollar franchise. I mean, the Empire couldn't separate Han, Luke, and Leia, but these guys could. Something that didn't go unnoticed with Luke Skywalker himself.
Are you bummed that Luke didn't get sort of a reunion with Han Solo?
Absolutely. In fact, when I was reading it, I thought, if Leia's trying to mentally contact me and she's not successful, she'll rush to his aid. She'll get close to him and then get into some dire situation, and that's when I show up for a big yay, save her life. Then we rush to Han and are in the same position that Rey and Finn and Chewie are. Too late to save him, but witnesses. And I say, because it would carry so much emotional resonance into the next film. For us, his wife, his best friend to witness, instead of two characters that have known him, what, 20 minutes? Well, Chewie.
I mean, the fact that those characters don't share a single scene together is criminal, like a Ron DeSantis level of criminal negligence. Either way, it's beyond criminal neglect to let people die like that. And when did Star Wars turn into Game of Thrones? I mean, producers got off on making snuff films that murked trilogy stars faster than the Chinese government did pro-democracy supporters in Tiananmen Square. I mean, the Starks had a better chance of surviving the Red Wedding. They let the politics of marketing alter the on-screen product, which in turn completely killed the marketing. Out of deference to business interests, characters like Luke were gotten rid of for fear he would impact the growth of other characters. But if you would have honored these characters, you'd still be selling toys for these characters instead of the flat sales you got now. It's classic short-term American business thinking. Too many people with business degrees making too many creative decisions they had no business making. I mean, that's the true definition of hell. And it's the wrong kind of politics. Star Wars at its heart is a deeply political story. The Phantom Menace, that whole trade union thing, was modeled after the outbreak of World War I. In fact, the whole empire was based on the Nazis, right down to the dick-shaped helmets. After family, politics are the most important part of the franchise, and the context in which everything plays out. It is a deeply political story. The story of Star Wars is about an authoritarian who rises to take over a party by getting them to overturn democracy until they're completely beholden to him. Try to get that image out of your head while you sleep tonight. Seriously, why do you think 126 congressmen voted with Palpatine to overthrow the Republic? Trump may not have force lightning coming out of his fingertips, but you should see him on the toilet. I mean, that's how powerful the dark side is. And that's how political Star Wars is. Star Wars is about family, but the backdrop, where the world really exists and is built, is in its politics. Yes, family is the heart and soul, but politics is the plot and structure. The prequel trilogy is about the rise of evil and how democracies die in the face of rising authoritarianism. The original trilogy is about keeping hope in the face of outright evil, and how that hope can help you overcome any obstacle, including a Nazi-like government. The third is about what happens when you change your business model to appease a government that runs concentration camps.
The new Star Wars film, The Force Awakens, won't open in Chinese movie theaters like this one until January 9th, but the film is already being marketed here in a big way. Disney even placed 500 Stormtrooper figurines onto the Great Wall of China to promote the movie trailer's premiere, but not all the attention has been positive. Some Star Wars fans were quick to point out some differences between the U.S. version and Chinese version of the official movie poster. In the U.S. version, on the left, black actor John Boyega, who plays a character called Finn, is a featured presence. On the Chinese side, on the right, he is shrunken down towards the bottom of the poster and replaced by TIE fighters. Meanwhile, other characters appear larger.
Pre-COVID, China was well on its way to becoming the #1 movie market in the world, which means the Chinese government would replace the Motion Picture Association of America as the premier agency screening films in the world's #1 market. That puts Disney in a terrible position, because like a true simp, Disney would buy the Chinese government's used bathwater while Chinese audiences don't give a shit about Star Wars.
The Star Wars film franchise has been a hit worldwide for a generation, but it looks like the power of the Force doesn't reach into one of the world's most important movie markets.
The latest release, The Last Jedi, has tanked in China and was pulled from theaters after just 2 weeks.
Like Paul Blart 3 would do better in China than Star Wars, which puts Disney in a terrible position. Not to mention they've got billions of dollars in assets the Chinese government can seize at any moment. So yes, Disney is desperate to sell in China. So desperate they thank concentration camp officials and even remove black characters from posters. Yes, China is now the world's second biggest theatrical market, but this assumption that China is racist towards black actors has given Hollywood a rationale to largely avoid releasing films with black protagonists there. It has also led to egregious acts of decolorization in how Hollywood films are marketed, including Lucasfilm's decision to minimize John Boyega's face in Chinese posters for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I mean, that's some 1960s shit. Debate whether you think Chinese or American audiences have a problem with race. But the fact that Disney does this in response to fears that they do is racist as shit, just on another level. It's like how Stephen Miller goes home every night and cuts the black people out of Ebony magazine. It's one of his love languages. He finds it relaxing. And this is something John Boyega has had to face in China before. The perfumer Joe Malone removed Boyega from an international ad he wrote and directed about his life, replacing him with a Chinese actor.
John Boyega has stepped down as Jo Malone's global ambassador. The actor has cut ties with the perfume brand after he was cut out of an advert in China and replaced by Liu Huran after the ad was recast and reshot despite conceiving, directing and starring in the original commercial.
I mean, that's crazy. That doesn't even make sense. It's about his life growing up as a West African actor in London. I mean, not only has Boyega faced this personally, Disney themselves has done this before. Yes, Disney themselves has recently committed apartheid-like censorship to satisfy the Chinese government. Marvel's Doctor Strange featured the white British actress Tilda Swinton playing a Tibetan character because the film screenwriter C. Robert Cargill felt that would be less controversial than casting somebody who looked ethnically Chinese or Tibetan. Cargill went on. If you acknowledge that Tibet is a place, he said, you risk alienating 1 billion people. Yeah, Avengers avenge everybody but the peace-loving Buddhists. Can't wait for the next installment. See them next summer in Avengers 4. Fuck you, Dalai Lama. Also starring Matt Damon as the Dalai Lama because it can't be played by an ethnic Tibetan. Disney cast a white person in a Tibetan role because they didn't want to upset the Chinese government. Some fans think that this whitewashing by Disney extended to the overall diminishing of John Boyega's character, as Disney was desperate to break into a Chinese market Hollywood felt was tepid towards black characters. I mean, they removed John Boyega from film posters in China, and magically his character Finn's role, starting with The Last Jedi, was reduced to, in Boyega's own words, fuck all. Completely contrary to how the character was pitched and set up. This was the first marketing image you ever saw, a fucking Force-sensitive Jedi. I mean, it's clear that J.J. Abrams planned on Boyega not only being a Jedi, but central to the main plot. And his character Finn was marketed as that outside of China. And then starting with Last Jedi, nothing. Boyega, to his credit, wasn't quiet about it. In September, Boyega told GQ, "You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up." Boyega went on to say, "You know what to do with these other people, but when it came to Kelly Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you know fuck all. So what do you want me to say? What they want me to say is I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. No. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver, all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows I'm not exposing anything. Either way, whether it was the choices Disney made pandering to certain markets or just story choices Rian Johnson made in The Last Jedi, the only black lead was suddenly discarded in the background. That movie is racist as shit, and yet its supporters praise it as promoting equality because, get this, in The Last Jedi, anybody can be a Jedi. Yeah, except for the black guy. Which also, by the way, no shit, anybody can be a Jedi. It's one of the dumbest points people make defending that movie. Have you seen any of the other ones? They literally have a ballsack Jedi. That's not even a pun. His entire forehead is made of testicle and it's a big forehead. Yeah, the prequels taught people forehead foreskin is a thing. I mean, look at it. Damn, girl got a 5-head just like Tyra. Coincidentally enough, 5-head Tyra is also a Jedi. That's how much everybody knows that anybody can be a Jedi. But you actually had to have, liked the movies before to know that. I mean, The Last Jedi is filled with all kinds of lazy moralizing that doesn't connect to the rest of the universe. Like how anybody can be a Jedi now when that was already true. Or how both the Sith and the Jedi are evil, even though the Sith have a very pro-murder children with lightsabers policy. The Sith have almost as many school shootings in a calendar year as an average United States high school, and somehow the Jedi and Sith are both evil. Both sides is lazy moralizing in any universe. Yeah, both sides are the same, even though the Empire believes in tax cuts for their imperial elite and gutting coverage for pre-existing conditions, and the New Republic is trying to pass universal health care. I mean, Johnson didn't even bother figuring out who Snoke was when it was staring him in the face all along. It was Mitch McConnell the whole time. He lives. He didn't even try to figure out how Snoke fit into the story, even for his own internal purposes or for the other actors to play off of. That's just lazy. Maybe it's because, Rian Johnson said, he doesn't care about story or canon, which, bravo to me, makes him the shittiest person to direct and write the 8th part of a 9-part series. I mean, he made Admiral Akbar Tim Rose cry on set because of the lack of care they showed the actor and character. Good thing he didn't see them at Benihana's later that night. I mean, Johnson took this job as the ultimate hipster. Too cool for school. I don't care about your Star Wars, man. To the point that he was gleefully hacking away at shit. Something Mark Hamill calls him out onto his face.
Yeah, I had a great time. Despite how somber the subject matter was.
Sure.
I mean, it says right in the script, forget the past. Kill it if you have to. And you're doing a pretty good job.
I'm trying.
I mean, he didn't even care to figure out basic shit and chalked it up to wanting to subvert expectations. For Christ's sakes, Mark Hamill had to add detailing the scenes on the spot because Johnson just straight up forgot or didn't know.
Originally, I didn't acknowledge 3PO. I walked right past him. I said, Ryan, look, after all those years of service, even though we hadn't been in contact in recent years, 3PO was the closest to a sidekick I had. Harrison had Chewie and I had R2 and 3PO, but
He's so accommodating, so collaborative. He said, oh, absolutely, you should go over there. You should. But he didn't really have time to script anything. He just to acknowledge him, and that's what I did.
Yeah, well, wait.
That's not subverting expectations, that's just laziness. It's one thing to order Domino's and another to watch the delivery man drop trout on your front lawn. That's not subverting expectations. That's what you see when you look at Odell Beckham's Postmates history. I mean, who wouldn't love a movie with all those flaws? All that love and attention to detail, and it's a well-told story about equality, too. You know what? Last Jedi does tell the story of modern equality. The good parts of history get tossed out with the bad. The black guy gets screwed, and the white woman wins in the end. Yeah! Instead of becoming a Jedi, he and the only other minority character get arrested for a parking ticket outside of a casino. That's actually what happened in the movie. I guess black lives don't matter on Canto either. It's one of the most racist blockbuster movies in recent history, not for what happens on screen, but for what happened off screen. The narrative equivalent of removing Boyega from a movie poster. Boyega himself points to Last Jedi as where shit went off the rails. The Force Awakens, I think, was the beginning of something quite solid. The Last Jedi, if I'm being honest, I'd say that was feeling a bit iffy for me. I didn't necessarily agree with a lot of choices in it, and that's something I spoke to Mark Hamill about a lot. It was hard for all of us. And Hamill agreed with him openly. I mean, Mark Hamill went around generally not giving a fuck, telling everybody exactly what he thought of Rian Johnson's conception of the character.
When I read 8, I told Ryan, I fundamentally disagree with virtually everything you've decided about my character. But, you know, other than that, I can't really describe more, but it was as shocking to me to read what Ryan had written. I said to Ryan, I said, Jedis don't give up. That's the crux of my problem. Luke would never say that. I'm sorry. Well, in this version, see, I'm talking about the George Lucas Star Wars. This is the next generation of Star Wars. So I almost had to think of Luke as another character. Maybe he's Jake Skywalker. He's not my Luke Skywalker. But listen, I still haven't accepted it completely. But my initial reaction, it wasn't so much that this closes my story and I'm done. It wasn't that. It was just that I thought that there was a misunderstanding of how I saw a Jedi. And I said to Ryan, this is fundamentally flawed. You being removed from Finn, that didn't feel good. I mean, there's lots of things for each of the actors where you go, I didn't see that coming.
It would be interesting to see if, given time, people feel differently about the story.
Yeah.
Because you, I guess, share what a lot of people thought.
Right.
Quote, I told Ryan I hate everything you've done with Luke Skywalker and had to play the character as somebody named Jake Skywalker, who apparently likes titty milk. Yes, Luke Skywalker, Jedi hero. Jake Skywalker, subscriber to green titty milk pages on OnlyFans. Yes, characters had to change and grow, but you had to write from the same quill with the same inkwell, especially when it's the penultimate episode of a series. It's like they made Passion of the Christ 2. People were like, you came back, thank you, Jesus, who died for our sins. And Jesus was like, die for your sins, you used to be Abe, Harry, Charles Darwin looking bitch. I didn't die for shit. Now excuse me while I lick this green titty. Yes, that means Han wouldn't abandon Leia, and Luke wouldn't abandon his sister either. It's just lazy writing. Those are journeys the characters have already taken, and storylines more appropriate for newer, less experienced characters who haven't suffered through the same growth. It's not what you did with the new characters, it's that you didn't honor the sacrifices of the old ones. But it's the same thing, whether it's Luke's character, Black Jedi, or both sides bullshit. Johnson's film makes assumptions of characters that aren't true and don't fit the world. Almost like it's not Star Wars, but an episode of Battlestar Galactica instead. That's because it is. He just rewrote the pilot episode 33. It's why none of the characters and shit fit. It's a semi-plagiarized piece of shit. And if Rian Johnson is watching, no, despite what you see, this isn't a good Star Wars movie. And Odell Beckham, relax. If you're watching, this isn't a hentai pillow. Something other directors in the series seemingly agree with. J.J. Abrams said of The Last Jedi, "It's a bit of a meta approach to the story. I don't think that people go to Star Wars to be told this doesn't matter." Ron Howard, who made Solo, the first Star Wars movie released after Last Jedi and the first to lose money, hinted at internal acknowledgments of how devastating Johnson's take on the universe was. Whatever millions Solo made worldwide, those were the core fans who didn't hit that zeitgeist point for whatever reason. Timing, young Han Solo, pushback from the previous movie, which I kept hearing was maybe something. And Joanne Markey, editor of Force Awakens, just comes right out and says it. And yet, when fans react to the same movie in the same way as editors, directors, and the freaking actors in the movie, they get called toxic and blamed by the likes of Bob Iger and Rian Johnson. It's almost like they're using a small number of racist trolls and willfully conflating them with fans who are angry to hide behind some kind of sanctimonious bullshit shield where they don't have to take responsibility for their actions. Even though sources within Lucasfilm acknowledge the sequel trilogy's problems internally and to the Wall Street Journal. I mean, have you seen how toxic these Reddit communities are that hate Star Wars so much? These fans are so toxic, they just want better written roles for the female and minority characters they supposedly hate. Yeah, fans so toxic, they put care into the franchise and actually give it value. You sound stupid when you blame Reddit for people not liking your movie. It's like blaming paper for Mein Kampf. Yeah, these fans are so toxic, they cause Lucasfilm producers to drink too many margaritas at the Magic Game and never come up with a narrative plan for the franchise. From Paste, how did this company decide to treat one of the world's most valuable pieces of IP, freaking Star Wars, like a story that could just be made up on the fly? Which is true. At one point they were just like, fuck it, Palpatine's back. At one point I was gonna do that in the 70s, just fuck it, Hitler's back. Yeah, I even had a trilogy planned. I mean, somehow Hitler has returned. But even in hell we thought that was too hacky. But apparently not for Disney. Pace continues. The downfall of Star Wars rests with producers at Disney who somehow convinced themselves and us that a blockbuster trilogy didn't need the presence of any kind of overarching narrative architect. It was an act of pure hubris, a supremely corporate, unearned sense of confidence that IP and branding mattered far more than a carefully planned story. These films, they aren't a trilogy. They're more like direct rebukes of each other. They played telephone with the most important franchise in the history of movies. Michael Scarn's threat level Midnight had more care and passion put into it. And you know what? His version of Star Wars would probably be better for the same reasons. When you denigrate the story or the fact that people care about it, you're killing the very thing you bought. But now you're stuck with incompetent management overlooking the franchise you care about. Now you know what it feels like to be a Jets fan. That's the literal definition of hell. They treated Mark Hamill like Mark Sanchez. Not caring about IP is how you literally kill a franchise. Look at what J.J. Abrams did with Star Trek, or Rian Johnson did with Star Wars, or for that matter, also what J.J. Abrams did with Star Wars. It's all connected. After Quentin Tarantino expressed interest in making a new Star Trek movie, Abrams told Tarantino the story in Star Trek didn't matter, especially after what Abrams had done to it.
You want the Guardian of Forever to have happened, don't you?
Yeah, I want the whole series to have happened, all right? It just hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
No, Benedict Cumberbatch, or whatever his name is, all right? It's not Khan, yeah. All right? Khan is Khan. And I told JJ, I go, like, I don't understand this. I don't like it. And then like, ignore it. Nobody likes it. I don't understand it. Just... do whatever you want.
And lo and behold, now they're at the same point with the Skywalker saga, where the story doesn't matter, and both movie franchises are dead in the water. But that's what these guys fail to realize. The only reason any of these properties have billion-dollar values is because that's the price of the human population who puts their love, care, and belief into these stories. When it's a $10 billion IP, you're not just maintaining a business, you're maintaining that story. And the people who care about that story are important. That's what makes your business. And that's why The Mandalorian is different, and also why there's no meaningful backlash against it, because Favreau and Filoni get it. Here's Jon Favreau. This is something I learned from over at Marvel and working with Kevin Feige is you always want to keep the core fans in mind because they've been the ones that have been keeping the torch lit for many, many years. And so you're really telling two stories at once. You're telling the story for the people who are new, fresh eyes, and you're telling the story for the people who have been there with the property and with the stories and characters for so many years, and make sure that you're honoring them as well. Compare that with Rian Johnson, who yells at fans online about his dick, or Madik, as he pronounces it, which is actually pretty funny and more original than The Last Jedi. They care about the property. It's not just potentially a $10 billion franchise. It's also story. And Disney showed that story, the kind of care the Trump administration shows in retconning jailed infants with their families. That being said, Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger, if you can't come up with more stories and you don't want to pay the writers you're already ripping off anyways, I'll give you your next Star Wars story for free. It's about a young girl born under an oppressive regime in a faraway land. For years and years, she toils at a prison camp until one day she escapes, and she's running across this majestic landscape, finally free. She spots the hill she's always seen from her prison window, the one horizon she's always yearned to look over. And as she's running to this horizon, she hears the armed guards behind her and knows she won't outrun them. But if she can just make it to that horizon, just over that hill, it might be okay. It might be worth something. And you know what? She does make it to that hill. She does make it to that horizon for the briefest of seconds before she's captured again. And do you know what she sees down in that valley? Disney shooting the sequel to Mulan. This has been Doomed Tonight. We'd like to thank executives and also Xinjiang Province, home of Concentration Camp 2, coming to Disney Plus soon. See you next week, everybody.